Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. You know, I didn't want to be back here this soon. I really didn't. Just a few days ago, we were pouring one out for Hideki Sato and David Rosen, the men who built Sega hardware that defined our youth. And today the news broke that Shutaro Iida, the creative force behind one of the greatest series and eras of Castlevania, has passed away at just 52 years old. He fought a brutal year-and-a-half-long battle with pancreatic cancer. And while the corporate world will move on to the next live service cash grab, we're losing the actual architects of the games that made us who we are. If you grew up with the Game Boy Advance or a Nintendo DS in your hands, Shutaro Iida was the reason you didn't put it down. This is for the Curry Kid. This is for the man who kept the whip cracking when the world tried to forget that 2D gaming still existed. We always talk about Koji Igarashi, Iga as the face of Castlevania. And look, Iga is a legend. But behind every great general, there is a tactician. And Shutaro Iida was that man. He started back on one of the greatest games of all time, Symphony of the Night. But his start truly rose when Castlevania moved over to the handhelds. While the, quote, big consoles were obsessed with clunky, early 3D action games, Iida was the lead programmer and director, making sure that the 2D heart of the series kept beating. Think about Aria of Sorrow on the Game Boy Advance. In 2003, we were all worried that 2D was dead. And then Iida drops this tactical soul system. The ability to absorb enemy powers. That wasn't just a mechanic. It felt like a revolution. That was Iida's brilliance. He understood that a game shouldn't just be played. It should be mastered. And then came the Nintendo DS. This was the peak. This was the era where games were actually games, in my opinion. And Iida was the chief programmer for all three DS entries: Dawn of Sorrow, Portrait of Ruin, and the brutally difficult Order of Ecclesia. These games had more souls and 64 megabyte cartridges than most $70 quadruple A games have in 100 gigabytes of bloatware. He was the one who made the controls feel like butter. When you landed a jump in Ecclesia or when you pulled off a dual crash in Portrait of Ruin, that was Iida's code. He was a master of the feel. He knew that if the movement wasn't perfect, the atmosphere didn't matter. And man, that atmosphere. He kept that gothic, crushing, lonely feeling of Dracula's castle alive when Konami was busy trying to make the series more like God of War. Iida was the shield that protected the fans from the corporate suits. When Iga finally left Konami to save the genre with Bloodstained, who was the first person that he called? It was Shutaro. Iida took the director's chair for Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, and he proved that it wasn't the Castlevania brand that mattered. It was the people. The Kickstarter was a record breaker because we, the fans, knew that if Iga and Iida were together, we were going to get a real game, a real great game. And boy, they deliver. Bloodstained felt like a homecoming. It felt like the DS era had finally come to the big screen. Iida was the creative director at Artplay, and even while he was battling cancer, he was still working. He was working on the sequel, The Scarlet Engagement, right up until the end. Now, think about that level of dedication. A man facing his own mortality, still trying to make sure the Metroidvania spirit didn't flicker out. There's a quote from Iida-san that's been circulating. He basically said, "The limit is near. Please love the games that I made." That's it, guys. That's the middle of the ground. These guys don't want statues or corporate awards. They just want their work to live on through us. Every time you pick up a GBA or emulator and you hear that Aria of Sorrow intro, or every time you hunt down a shard in Bloodstained, you're keeping Iida's spirit alive. Yeah, we're losing the Titans. First, David Rosen, then Sato, and now Iida. The people who actually cared about the art of game designs, well, they are leaving the stage. It leaves a void, and it's our job as the gamers who grew up when games actually meant something to make sure that those names aren't forgotten. That's why I make videos like this, even though I don't want to. I want to just share the news. I want to share the next big thing. But here's to Shutaro Iida, the Curry Kid. Thank you. Thank you for the souls, the glyphs, and the thousands of hours that gamers have spent lost in your castles. You gave us a world to escape when the real one got too loud. I'm going to go fire up Order of Ecclesia tonight. I suggest you pick one, do the same. Play a game that he touched. Feel the craft. Hear the music. This has been a hell of a week, but we're going to keep moving because that's what these creators would want. We keep the flame alive. Drop your favorite Castlevania or Bloodstained memory in the comments. Let's celebrate the man's work. Don't forget to check out the description for a link to Artplay and the upcoming Scarlet Engagement. We owe it to Iida to make sure his final project is a massive success. Rest in peace, Shutaro. The castle is yours now.